Hello, so let's take a look at the iron pillar of Delhi and have an examination of it and see that it does fit the ancient Hermetic Code, which is many hours how it applies to the modern world. I've gone through, added to some of the research regarding the Great Pyramid. The Hermetic Code does stretch back to the beginnings of recorded time, but with this we're going to have a focus on the Iron Pillar of Delhi and a look at the Ellora Caves as well, another one of these magnificent structures from India. Now, the Iron Pillar of Delhi, it's quite famous, very enigmatic. Now, it's at least 1600 years old, so now probably older than that, but we'll stick with those dates for now. And well, it hasn't rusted. It's an enigma. It's a mystery. Now, they've done tests on it. There are impurities. There's every reason that it should have rusted away, but it hasn't. It's one of these perplexing things of the ancient world and the metallurgy, the alchemy, the sciences of the ancient world. The ancient people were very scientific. They were very clever. They weren't consumerist, mass production types of science. They were, unlike us, they were civilized in that way. But again, but also you have to read these things in a different type of language. They didn't, use an ISBN number and publish in a way that's acceptable to universities in this format. They wrote and encoded their information in many other forms, mythology, but most importantly weights and measures, and this being at the core of still to this day the modern sciences. And this is why the establishment has such a hard problem dealing with this, because they can't just wave it away with their hands. It's about weights and measures. But have a quick look at the timeline. So we have Pythagoras, Buddha, Phidias, and Plato. So you can see where Buddha was, in that part, but also because that was an important point, we'll examine that in a moment. That's also got to do with the origin of the modern foot. Now, the Roman or the Greek foot goes back, to the Roman Greek period, but the so-called modern standard or the English foot that we use now, some will place it roughly around 1000 AD at the very earliest, but that's not true. There's a huge amount of evidence to suggest that it's at least 2,500 years old, and probably much older than that. Along with the meter and the metric system, they are much older than what we are taught in school. It's a big pile of bull manure, quite frankly. But now, the iron pillar, for instance, the diameter at the very top is 1 foot, one standard foot as we use now. Now, even the bottom, as it tapers down, even the bottom's very interesting, because it forms a unity point between Doric, Ionic, the Samos and the Cremona foot, but we won't go into that for this video. I just want to have a look. So the diameter of the collar of the pillar at the very top, 1 foot. How old is a foot? Well, it's at least 2,500 years old, and we can get very strong, well, beyond strong, very excellent evidence of that, especially from the Parthenon. Now, we do know the Ionic and Doric foots were ancient scales of measure. The common foot, there's this mythology, it was based on it anyway. There's old wives' tales regarding that. But Mark Wilson-Jones, he's studied the Salama stone, and he found how the Doric, the Ionic, the Samian or the Samos foot, as well as the modern foot, are encoded in this ancient piece of stone which connects to the same period as the Parthenon. Here we see a diagram to show. So the modern foot, the 12-inch ruler that you would have seen, that you got at school, you probably got one at home, you got a tape measure, you know what it is. Well, it's much older than the standard history would allow, and the mythology about it being the size of a king's foot, that's just nonsense. They shouldn't be selling it. No one's going to be buying it. That old myth should just die. But it's also important in regards to the modern esoteric occult world of the West, Freemasonry for especially, because we have the Doric, the Ionic, also have those ancient weight scales. Also connects to musical scales, and again, they'll sort of place it at the very earliest in the medieval period, but it actually goes back much further, because the ratios of the Doric and the Ionic also connect to the Dorian and Ionian musical modes as well. So that these coincidental ancient measures should so much tee up together Occam's razor, obviously, if they were doing it back then and they were quite musical, Pythagoreans were very much into their music theory, so we should again just knock that on the head, and that the standard history is bogus. Okay, so if you use the same technique that is used across Australia in Hermetic architecture, also across France, Paris, London, New York, across America, Canada, very much connected with the Masons and occult groups, and also goes back through the great cathedrals. We're going to use the same method, and we have a capital which is 3.5 feet. That's 108 grains on the Cremona scale. This is a reoccurring unit of measure. Also 1.09375 Doric yards, another reoccurring measure, but also reoccurring numbers. For instance, 108, a sacred number for Hindus, Jains and Sikhs. Around India, this part of the world, 108 is one of the core numbers, but also we'll take a little bit further. But so the same systems of measure that I've just been producing a lot of videos regarding countless buildings, cathedrals, going back as well to and now across the ancient world. And for instance, recently I did one on China and mythology, numbers there, but sun, earth and moon in regards to the Iron Pillar of Delhi. So these two numbers in themselves, again, repeating across the architecture, across cultures, across time, pardon me, but they also have these reoccurring themes of sun, earth and moon and astronomy, and the harmonious nature, the very unique, very beautiful systems in which they connect, which seems to be unique to the earth. But okay, for instance, 109375, shifted decimal point, but the diameter of a sun times 109.375 will give us a distance from the sun to the earth. Diameter of the sun times 100 is a distance from the sun to the earth, because the elliptical nature, both of these work. But basically 109.375 forms the maximum, and 108 will bring us towards the minimum. As where the diameter of the earth times 109.375 will give us the diameter of the sun. Now you could also do that at 108, and that is also correct as well, again within the acceptable band. So it will, during the elliptical orbit, that period, 108 will work beautifully there as well. But okay, so sun, earth and moon. Now the earth and the moon. Diameter of the moon times 109.375 fits into the proportions, the distance between the earth and the moon as well, as will the diameter of the moon times 108. 108 is the most reference, but you'll find that this towards 109.2 up to 109.375 will also is superior method as well. Though both of them work, and both of them are excellent examples of this, and they have these proportions. And if you're familiar with my other videos, you'll see how these numbers in weights and measures reoccur over and over, especially in regards to the medieval royal foot. But proportions of sun, earth and moon, and like the eclipse is one perfect example of where now it might just be interesting on its own, but these proportions also come together to bring us the solar eclipse. The moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, but the sun is 400 times further away. It gives us this perfect unity where the moon perfectly covers the sun, and without that we would never be able to see the corona, and we would be centuries at least back in regards to our understanding of many of the sciences, especially nuclear sciences, because the eclipse is one of those keys where we were able to work out nuclear physics, fusion, these types of things. What makes the elements that make up the sun, etc., was really a very, very important factor in that. Now, so that's one of the beautiful harmonies, of these points, how the sun, earth, moon interact. But they're common themes that run through the ancient world up into the modern esoteric world: Rosicrucians, Templars, Freemasons, Oddfellows, all these groups. Now, it's in their temples and buildings, they use these proportions, these numbers. They also use the symbols. The Hermetic Code and the Hermetic symbolism also has much to do with alchemy, alchemy being one of the essential parts of the craft, as it's called. Sun and the moon, we also see the Kundalini or Caduceus of Hermes in alchemical depictions. Also, the concept of alchemy will very often refer to the union of the male and the female, the sun and the moon on the earth. Recurring themes, very important, about the unifying of these two forces, the male and the female coming together in the Hermetic. Hermes is sometimes male, sometimes female. That's what the origin of the word hermaphrodite, where we have the male and the female coming together, the forces of unity, of harmony, very much expressed throughout these traditions, throughout these legends, throughout the architecture, and throughout the weights and the measures. And therein lies the tangible key to it. Now, if, like myself, I'm still very much trying to, break away from the materialism, or the strict versions of it, because this study of this opened my eyes, because weights and measures, these are the tangible things to describe intangible concepts, and that's one of the lovely points about it. It's about a union of much bigger things, and it's also, it'll bring in philosophy and spiritualism, which still makes me, it's a term it's a bit uncomfortable for me to use, but the more you look into it, you cannot deny it. Okay, iron pillar, it's hermetic, but it's sun and moon. 1.2 meters, 1.12 meters below ground, 7.21 above ground, giving us a total length for, as above, so below, together 27.33 feet. Covered this in some other videos. It's across the world, it's across cultures, 27.333. Now, it's very, very rarely mentioned in this discussions around this field. Sometimes brought up Peter Plichko and some other people, but I think this is one of the areas that really needs to be explored much further, this particular number, because from the Great Pyramid, the stone circles, the stone works across the world, temples across the ancient world have these, and very much connecting also, as we'll see, the Hermeticists, the older people, the older studies who introduce these weights and measures very carefully, chose them to lift the veil, is, in my belief, one of the reasons why they did it. Now, weights and measures, but 27.3, sun, earth and moon. Okay, sun, earth, moon and stars. In the sidereal month is where we're going to really introduce the concept of the stars. So a sidereal month is the orbit of a moon around the earth in relation to a fixed star. The sidereal month is a relationship of earth, moon and the stars. So that's a key point. So a sidereal month takes 27.3 days. Now, it does move a little bit either way, and I'm just rounding it off because there's a whole bunch of other beautiful exact harmonies that will bring us into this, but that would take long. I sort of touched on some early videos on it. I don't want to repeat that at the moment. But so 27.3 days, it's a natural cycle. It's defined by nature. It's not man-made. It's in nature. So one sidereal month is 27.3 days. During that time, the moon will rotate once. So one moon day is 27.3 days. Now, sidereal orbits is used to define the year. So the Earth year is defined a sidereal orbit. Now, so one moon year, sidereal month, is 27.3 Earth days. One moon day, one lunar rotation is 27.3 Earth days. Synchronous orbit, that's why the man on the moon always faces the Earth. Just like with the eclipse and the synodic month, this is a wonderful, wonderful harmony. Now, again, if you do a first page search, you're going to find 26.99 degrees is the average which the Earth will travel in the solar arc. But because of the elliptical orbit, it will also travel through 27.3 degrees. Well, it just keeps on going. Now, for instance, the Great Pyramid proportions, but that will bring us to the moon being 27.3% the size of the Earth. That's, again, is a natural scale. 27.3 degrees, we could use a different compass, we wouldn't get that number, but the days and for proportions are built into nature. So the moon is 27.3% the size of the Earth, and the moon orbits not the centre of the Earth, but at the barycenter, which is 27.3% below the Earth's surface, or 5,000 kilometres, 1618.033987 kilometres. Beautiful, perfect. There's information here, and it's defined by nature. Also, at the furthest point away from at apogee, furthest point that the moon will get away from the Earth, will bend out to 1.0.00273 AU, 1 AU being the average distance from the Earth to the Sun. If you're familiar with Bode's law, Earth is number one on Bode's law, so that makes it's a perfect sense that Earth should be one, and the unit of measure of the solar system should be Earth to Sun being one. The Sun rotates every 27.3 days, so one Sunday is 27.3 days. Now, that's useful in observations of sunspots, which tend to be at 27.3 degrees north or south latitude. Now, they are at other places, but there is a specific band where sunspot activity is the most the most sunspots happen there, 27.3. And therefore, and they also will rotate at 27.3 days. Sun, Earth, Moon, and stars. The veil, lifting the veil. Now, Iron Pillar of Delhi. It's hermetic. It's got to do with alchemy. It hasn't rusted. There is a mystery behind it. Now, if you look at the Ellora Caves complex, and this particular temple was carved down from the stone above. So this is essentially one big, beautiful block of stone. How this was done, why it was done, the effort that goes to it. Again, it's still something of a mystery. For instance, Halfasheep visited here recently and it's got some videos. Regards to that, I'll try and remember to put the link in the description, but it's beautiful, it's marvelous. It's like, it's not as big as the Great Pyramid, but the enigma and the information hidden in plain sight, in weights and measures, can be seen. This is just one other example. There are many, many others across India, China, the Middle East, North Africa, Europe. It just dominates the ancient world. And for instance, it's 108 feet wide. Stonehenge is 108 feet wide. Across Mohenjo-Daro, the Great Pool, is 108 feet wide. Countless ones. I've put some videos up regarding that. But it's also 164 feet deep. Arc de Triomphe in Paris, or the Carillon here in Canberra, again, just as a couple examples, 164 feet or 27.33 fathoms. So the Ellora Caves, the Kailasa Temple, 108 feet wide, 27.33 yards deep. 108, 27.3 in the Iron Pillar of Delhi. By the rulers, you see this, again, so many in the modern world and all across the ancient world. Weights and measures. The units of measure that we have now are derived from geodesic or earth-based measures. Geometry, it's not just about shapes, it's about geometry, earth measure. The existence of the foot, the Salamis stone puts it clearly in this chunky period of history where we have Pythagoras, Phidias, Buddha and Plato, and so that in the Eastern world, now even earlier than that, but okay, Mohenjo-Daro, 2600 BC at least, their standard weights were at 27.333 grams. Now, another example of this metric system carrying this through. Now, at the same period in history, supposedly where the Indus and the Egyptians had nothing to do with one another, they were using exactly the same system of weights and measures because they were trading with each other, or they had information from a common source regarding weights and measures. This alone, again, just blows the official history out of the water. Trade was happening much earlier than what they'll admit to. And that's really, it blows apart the narrative, the official narrative of ancient history, and the foot as well as it exists. But also, for instance, the Phi and Phidias, in regards to at least the official discovery in the Greek world. Now, so much of what is Greek and Roman is they learnt from the Indians and they learnt from the Egyptians and other ancient cultures to the north of them, and they incorporated the exact same measures. So 1 ounce in the Greco-Roman world was 27.33 grams. The same one was used in ancient Greece, the same one that was used in the Indus Valley, ancient Egypt, Old Kingdom Egypt, at the very beginning of so-called beginning of Egyptian civilization, and that alone is a crock. The evidence in weights and measures is there, and that system has also been passed on. So the Avoirdupois weight system, for instance, 27.34375 grains. That exact number across, well, Australia, across the modern world, especially in regards to Masonic structures, Masonic temples, Oddfellow temples, they all have these numbers built into them through weights and measure. And the Hermetic Code is this, as you can see, the symbols of the planets are also alchemical symbols. Alchemy and chemistry is an arbitrary division between the two. Now, all the tools, the methods of so-called modern chemistry were being used in the alchemical period. People will laugh, oh, well, alchemy, they thought they could turn lead to gold, but we know that now that that's impossible. Well, actually, no, they've recently discovered that it is possible, and there's plenty of others written down in old books, and people have repeated these experiments now. And so if you've ever heard that you can't turn lead into gold or base metals into gold, well, actually you can. It's been done. It's very, very expensive, but it is not impossible. So the ancient system, the ancient legends of weights and measures, now we have to read their language as they wrote it down. They didn't have an ISBN number. They didn't write it down in the official format that you need to get published in academic papers. They had a different method. They had a different system. Their technology, they did not, you can say they were more civilized in they didn't have a consumerist, disposable economy or industry. Things were done different. They were done sustainably. These cultures were able to survive for thousands of years. An empire would last for hundreds and hundreds, thousands of years. In the last 200 years since industrialization, we've screwed the world. There's no one can really deny that. Just the amount of pollution and waste and the war and destruction. We are very technologically advanced, but we are spiritually empty. We don't. We're like a baby with a gun, and you have the wars, the pollution. Like it's not kumbaya stuff. It's clear that we are uncivilized, as where these people were able to create systems. Temples and constructions that lasted for the ages. In a very short time, there'll be nothing left to say we were even here. But by the weights, by the scales, now the ancient people, the Indus and the Egyptians and other people were using standardized the same weights and measures. Trade was happening. So, but also, as with some other researchers in regards to this, now even the secret societies very often refer to themselves as antediluvian or pre-flood. And again, the evidence of this great flood, Randall Carlson is an excellent source into this. He's looking into the geology, and he just shows how the worldwide evidence of this great flood, this cataclysm, which happened roughly 12,000 years ago. And well, from this previous civilization, we have some legacies. There is a legacy left. There are traces of it left. And it's in the weights and the measures and the symbols from the officially recorded beginnings of history, such as the Great Pyramid, Mohenjo-Daro, Harappa, and places such as this in Russia, the stone circles in England, and so forth. Same numbers, same patterns, same systems going on and on again. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed, hope you got something out of this. There is the measurable, tangible evidence of this is really mounting up every day. It just keeps collecting. I think it's very important. But the fact is that the academic establishment it has vested interest in this. They're not really. They refuse to look at the data. They refuse to look at the information. For instance, the cocaine and tobacco in ancient Egyptian mummies such as Ramses, it's just like not discussed because it cannot be debunked, despite their best efforts. The truth persists, and the truth in weights and measures cannot be denied. And so anyway, I hope you enjoyed and have a good one.